What's going on, YouTube? I think people have to realize this one major thing. It's in front of us every second of the day, and it will be in front of us for the rest of our lives, right? Realize that the implementation of the American system is just that. It's a system, right? You know, it's not a country first. It's not a place of residence or place of refuge. It's not more so a place of opportunity. Like, I saw this comment last week and I was like, bingo. I said, that's exactly what it is. Everything is transactional, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, America is not a country first. It never has been. It's always been a corporation. It's always been a business. Business. Like, if you look at America, look at all these other countries. Look how they operate. Look how they operate outside the U.S., overseas, abroad. Look how America operates, right? It's insane, right? I'm gonna take a step back, right, to kind of tie this all together. When you get a house, you take out a loan. That's a debt. That's a transaction. Right? When you get a car, right, you take out a loan, that becomes a debt. When you use credit, right, that used availability, that becomes a debt that you owe back to the lender, right? You know, like when you apply for a job, right, your time is debt to your employer. Right. So if you look at all that stuff, right, you know, size it up, stare and compare, you know, make similarities between that and what America is doing to its people or not doing with its people. It's almost like looking in a mirror. It's very synonymous. America is a corporation, not a country. That's why it's easy. If people aren't doing what they need to do, America chews you out. There's chews you out, spits you up. There's a secret, almost secret, because people don't still realize there's a secret maneuver path that you gotta take to where you have to be isolated in your mind to do certain things most other people won't do, which is limit liability. That could be kids. That could be limiting debt, right? That could be increasing income and investing it. But early. America is all about early innovation, right? You got to get to it first and quick, you know? So most people aren't doing that. If you think about a job, right? If you're lacking in your job, you know, you're not promoting the country, you're not promoting the company in a certain way, right? Like, it's a 24/7 business with America. So if you're comparing that to your job, right, your 9 to 5, if you're not doing certain things to maneuver and first promote the company, right, through giving your time, you know, blood, sweat, and tears to that company, you won't only get promoted, which if you compare, right, I'm going back and forth, being promoted in a company is like, you know, being able to, acquire different assets, like in America, right? Being able to stay above float, like not just float, but like build you a ship, you know, if that doesn't happen, you will stay stagnant. That means you will stay in a position in your company. In America, you will stay stagnant, right? And not only that, you would get let go, fired, replaced. Your position will be eliminated. Well, that's what's happening in America, right? You know, people who are on, you know, in subsidized housing, people whose jobs are replaceable with AI in manufacturing, formulas, and things of that nature, like, they will get replaced. All right. If you're not ahead of the curve mentally and manifesting that physically, you will get spit out after being chewed up. So like, it's a corporation, like it's a big business. America has $1 trillion in debt. All those other comparisons and where you're leveraging debt to attempt to get ahead, if not just stay afloat, America is doing the same, right? They're leveraging all this debt to be, to continue to be a powerhouse compared to other people. But get this, right? Just like a company usually is more, what, a good company is 15, 20, 25% marginable profit, right? So if a company makes $1 billion in revenue, all expenses, including payroll, all expenses, right, should be no more than 800 million, right? So they're marginal at 20%, right? So you can work at a job, right? $1 billion company is like, you can tell your parents or your friends, I work at this $1 billion company, right? Or that you work at this $1 billion company, but you're only making $10, $15 an hour. I mean, you're just a pawn at this. You're just a pawn, right? You're making 10. You're not part of senior leadership, executive leadership to help steer that company, right? You don't have equity in that company. You don't have stocks in that company, but you're putting in the same amount of work, sizable comparison to that upper leadership, right? Upper management in that hierarchy. You're putting in 50, 60, 70 hours of work just as well. You're just not getting compensated the same, right? It's just like America. Billions and billions and billions of dollars just floating around, right? And you're barely hanging by a thread. It's the same system. It's the same thing. America is all business first. It will forever be business first. When you realize it's business first, you then got to look at what you're doing. You're an employee here in America. You're not a citizen. But get this, right? You may not be getting paid well on your company, but sometimes they have certain benefits. That's what keeps people stuck, right? And keep people well-acting. When I got this 401k, or if you're lucky enough, 401k and contribution, right? I get paid weekly instead of bi-weekly, right? I have flexibility at my time, but I'm, you have all these benefits. My company is 100% employee, medical financed, and 50% family, right? So you get all these perks, right? Half days on Friday, luncheons, you get all these perks that looks decent day to day, but you're not really making enough to promote your own livelihood to get to that next step, right? Which is investments, which is taking care of your health, making time for your health, eating the right way, and preparing for the future of your kids. You're not able to take those steps because you're an employee first. They give you just enough to keep you here. That's an employee. You know what I'm saying? You're not making any strides. And that's why I always tell myself, I tell my wife, I tell other people, as long as I'm going to work, I'm going to make sure that I promote myself within a company as long as I need to work to be able to now make decisions and be a little bit more equitable, have leverage in my job to bring back some sort of autonomy in my life. I'm not just going to be just an employee, just basic being strung around, from a puppeteer. That's not how it's going to go for me in mine, right? So, but that's what happens to a lot, if not most people, right? They forget that, America is a big business first. And just like how you have some perks in your company with your 9-to-5 job, right? Or if you're 1099, right? There's some perks with just being employed, right? Promoting another's business, right? It's perks of being American, right? You got a passport, you make USD, right? You have citizenship where you could now leave the U.S. and have dual or triple citizenship depending on where you go, right? There's certain perks and benefits to that where it's funny how people on a job run to that stuff on their job, right? All those benefits I talked about. PTO, another big thing, right? They run to this stuff, but they're not looking at that benefit too much with being an American employee, right? A systematic employee by your country. We're not fully, there's people who don't even have passports, right? There are people who, are not, looking outside in, right? Looking at where their dollar can take them outside of the American business, right? It's just like working on the job, dude. It's like you've been at the job for 5-10 years. You've now developed, especially in a certain industry, you've now developed the ability and leverage to climb at another job, or sometimes move lateral as far as a position and increase your income 20, sometimes 50%, because you spent so many, you spent, mastery years in one position, right? At a current or former job, to where you've leveraged yourself with that experience, right? To now, do the same or a little bit more work with, a decent amount more pay. And you've also leveraged yourself to stay at the job that you're comfortable in, processes by heart, right? You can do it in your sleep. People will probably respect you more. You could probably get the same amount of money that you were going to leave to go, if not more, to stay at a company, because they know that they need you, right? You're per capita. The more, the more, outside of getting like work and contracts, the more employees that a company has is usually backed by how much the company can make in that year. Because there's a lot, you're a dollar sign to people, right? There's a lot of businesses where usually, right, a 3,000 to 5,000, I get plus or minus size company, right, is usually making usually revenuing close to $500 million. Again, it just depends on the sector or industry you're in. Close to $500 million in revenue, not profit, revenue a year, right? Between all departments, that's revenue for the entire company. So like, people don't really want to have turnover, but they could build, if you're a 10,000 plus company, they could afford that turnover, so it's just, anyway, it's, if you think about looking outside in a lot of times, right, while using the benefits that you have as an American citizen, treat that stuff just like work. But I mean, the kicker is, like, a lot of people stay in the same position at work anyway. So having that type of closed-mindedness, whether it's fear, whether it's not feeling respected at your job, so you may not feel respected, you may think you may not feel respected at another job, right? Wanting stability because you have kids, or because you're in a certain situation where you depend on family, so moving to another job doesn't seem right, it's not the right time, right? That's the same mindset. Working at a job for the average 9-to-5 employee in America is the same as being a citizen or an employee for America, right? Like, it's the same thing. It's very synonymous. The more you realize that we are an employee of America, and sometimes you got to take a gap year, right? Or take a sabbatical, right? Or just straight out leave because you've done your time, right? There was a tenure that you put in place, right? And you've leveraged some benefits that you have as being an American citizen to get the hell out, right? And see, right, your real world outlook, your real world worth, right? Because there's a lot of false worth here. Like, companies provide false worth to their employees. Yeah, there's a lot of growth here, right? There's a lot of growth here, and you are making the way for our company, and we appreciate you. Well, here's $1 or $2, right? So it's the same, man. It's the same. But when stuff hits the fan, or a new leader, a new CEO, a new COO, a new CTO, right? They come into play. Well, they want to reconstruct. They want to reorganize, and sometimes that means getting rid of you. No matter how long you've been here, it's the same thing. President come in, new legislation, new laws come in, They want to get rid of you, man. It's the same thing. America is corporation based first. It's all about the bottom line, and they have to protect the 1% assets, just like a company. The company protects the company. And the company always starts out with executive leadership or C-suite leadership first. Unless the C-suite leadership is, doing something ridiculous and crazy. That's also different from America, right? Just because, you have leadership, right? Legislative branch and all that stuff, judicial branch, executive, you can't just get rid of them, right? It don't just work that way, right? We're not really democratic based as a lot of people think. So realize that, man. Corporation first. Quicker you get that in your head, the quicker you're gonna want to maneuver and be like, damn, man, I was shook for years, bro. I was shook for years. They control a company controls your life. Working controls your life. America controls people's minds. It controls your minds, man. A company controls your life. America controls people's minds. It's the same thing. It's all systematic. It's all systematic. It all get right. You could afford if you could barely afford a house or an apartment, you could start your little family, barely afford that, right? Get a car, barely afford that, and you could barely afford retirement, but you're an employee here, man. You're an employee. Why? Because you pay taxes. No matter whether you make $1 million or zero, you will forever pay taxes. That's being an employee, right? You will forever pay taxes, right? If anything doesn't happen, you will pay taxes. You will pay taxes. And if you're not maneuvering right, you're not just pay taxes, right? You'll lose your job. You'll lose your house. You'll lose your apartment, right? There's people losing, medical aid. There's people losing SNAP, EBT, which is food on their plate. You're losing all of this stuff and paying taxes. It's wild. That's what happens when it's a corporation first. It's not democratic, and you don't have autonomy. If you're not looking for autonomy, you don't. So think about that, man. Someone made a comment on something on that note, and I was like, man, that's a good way to sum it up. That's powerful. America is a corporation, not a country. Yeah, think on that.